Hi there, it's Nicole for Honeybee Stamps, and today I'm going to be sharing some ideas on how to create this shaker card using lots of the Honeybee stamps and dies, and I'll even be creating some of my own masks from the hexagon base plate dies so that I can have a nice flat front for my shaker. I've started by die cutting this hexagon stipple plate from some yellow cardstock. This is a nice sunflower type of cardstock, and I originally thought that these stencils from Honeybee were going to work, but they don't line up. And I wanted to be able to give this stipple plate some nice texture with Distress ink so that it has more of a dimensional look, but it's still going to remain flat. And the way I achieved that was to create my own masks. So from some regular printer paper, and this is a little bit heavier weight printer paper, so it's not going to be super flimsy, I die cut, first of all, the hexagon base plate, or pardon me, the middle plate. And I am going to just tape it in place over my stipple plate background, and I am going to ink this up with fossilized amber distress ink. This is going to give some nice detail to all of those little hexagon areas there inside and immediately give my background a little dimension. This is going to make it so much easier to cut through than if I tried to die cut all these layers and layer them one on top of another and then die cut through them to create my shaker window. So there's my first layer, which is lovely the way it is, but I wanted to go ahead and add even more dimension and layering. So I die cut the hexagon base plate from some printer paper as well. Again, line it up. Go ahead and tape it in place with some little post-it tape, and then I'm using Rusty Hinge Distress ink. And with this, I am not going over the whole thing. I'm kind of just doing a light hand all over the place for a more inconsistent look. And I even saved my stencils and put them in the back of the packaging where I keep all of my dies, so that if I want to do something similar again, I already have a stencil. So there, I'm just going to tuck it in the back, put my die away, and I have it for next time. Next, I am going to take some of the hexagon frames, and starting with the smaller of the two, I am going to die cut my shaker opening with this hexagon frame. So I want to make sure and get it lined up. I'll use some post-it tape to hold it in place and then simply run that through my Big Shot. To create the frame for the front of my shaker for that window, I'm going to take that same hexagon shape plus the next one larger, tape those in place, and run those through my die cut machine, and I'm instantly going to have a great hexagon frame for framing up the window of my shaker for my card. I'm taking now the bees from the Busy Bees stamp set and a little heart, and originally I started with my 4 bees, and then I realized I wanted those 2 teeny tiny bees because they will be fantastic inside my shaker. So I am stamping all of these images on some smooth white cardstock using a black ink for Copic coloring, and then I'm simply going to color these in. These are fairly small images, so really quick coloring, only about 2 shades per color is all that's needed for some great blending. A couple of shades of gray, a little R20 for the cheeks, some yellows for the alternating stripes, and then some blue violets in very, very light shades for the wings to kind of give them that iridescent look. I'll add a little wink of Stella Clear glitter brush pen to those after I have them die cut for even more of that glittery kind of look, so that they look even more like bee wings, I think. All the colors of Copic markers I'm using are shown across the bottom of the screen for easy reference. Once I have everything colored in, I will be die cutting these with the coordinating Busy Bees dies. I like to take a little post-it tape them all in place, and run it through with one pass of my machine. That way I can get all of these images die cut just with one pass, and I'm ready to go and move on to building the shaker for my card. Anywhere that I think the wings maybe got a little heavy, I did go in with the colorless blender and kind of push that ink out. So I'm going to pop out all of my little bees and heart now. I like to save my Post-it tape and reuse it if possible. Get the most uses that I can from that. And I've got my window now, I've got my greetings that I want to use, and I want to just lay out my bees and make sure that I like where everything goes, everything is going to fit before I go ahead and start adhering anything. So my greeting is actually going to sit on front of the transparency window, and I have a little piece of transparency I've cut to fit behind that hexagon shape. I like to do the greeting on the front of the window so that it's visible at all times. In order to do this, I'm going to go ahead and attach my transparency to the back of my frame. I've also die cut and inked another panel that's going to be the back of the shaker panel so that I never lose any of that hexagon beehive type look. And I'm going to use a combination of a die cut greeting and a stamped greeting. In order to stamp on the transparency window, I'm going to need to use a StazOn ink, something that's not going to smear. So I'm going to use some StazOn ink in black. Once I have that lined up where I want it to go, I'm going to go ahead and stamp that. I like to use the MISTI. In the event it doesn't stamp very well, I can always stamp it twice. Another tip is if you stamp it and it is not exactly where you want it to go or it doesn't look quite right, you can always wipe it off with a little Ultra Clean cleaner and start over. On the back of the front of my shaker panel now, I'm going to go ahead and double up some foam adhesive. This is some Scotch 3M adhesive. And I am going to put it all over the back of this panel, and this is going to create that shaker well. I'm going to use a powder deactivating tool so that hopefully my sequins don't stick so bad. In this, I'm going to add those 2 teeny tiny bees and some of the Honeybee Stamps Honey Jar Sequin Mix. Remove the backing paper and go ahead and put the back of my shaker in place and then shake it up. So inside my shaker, I have got those adorable 2 teeny tiny little bees and then the Honey Jar Sequin Mix. Now I started to adhere some of the elements, forgetting that I have that great black frame that I need to adhere. I also want to stamp some of the Busy Bee trails to give those bees some movement. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Luckily, I am generous with my foam tape, so I have a nice stable surface to stamp that on. I probably should have done that before I put the shaker frame in place, but it worked out here. I'm going to run a thin line of glue around that hexagon frame and just put that right in place, and you can tell the difference. It just makes that window really pop with that hexagon frame. And you could do so many different things with these frames. This is just one idea. Here's some Wink of Stella clear glitter brush pen on the little bee's wings. I need to add one final bee, and he's going to be sitting on top of the window, and all that shaking is going to be going on behind. I'm going to take a black glazed pen and just reinforce the eyes and really make those pop. I've got a piece of fun foam here that has stick it on both sides and then cardstock, and I'm going to die cut that with the word bee. And then I'll go ahead and add that to my card in a little bit. The white cardstock makes it that I can add any ink color to this to add color. So instead of Distress ink, which is what I use a lot, I have some black dye ink out, and that's what I actually use to add color to this. I could have die cut it from black cardstock as well, but since I have this scrap of paper there, white cardstock makes it super easy to just customize it with whatever you want to color it with. So I'm just going to press my black ink pad into this to add color to that word. It's a really delicate die cut, so I added the ink before I pop it out. Because it has Stick It on the back of it, it's going to be sticky like a sticker. Now it's wet, so I'm going to hit it with a heat tool so that I don't get black ink all over my project. I'm going to simply pop that out, use a piercing tool to remove the insides of any of the letters that didn't automatically come out. It's really sticky, and it's going to stick to the window perfectly, and that little bit of dimension adds a nice bit of interest and really helps make it nice and legible. So there is the front. There's my shaker all finished on the front of the card. I'm going to take a white top fold card base now, and I can pop that shaker right in place. It's slightly smaller than A2 size, so it's going to have a teeny tiny little white border all the way around the edge. There is what the shaker is going to look like. Now, to finish the inside of the card, because I do have one little bee left from when I colored and die cut those, I'm going to finish my greeting with the sentiment on the inside, "You are strong." This is a great encouragement card for somebody who maybe is struggling or going through a hard time. Just something happy and fun. It's a nice little bit of happy mail that you can send to friends, family, or a loved one. I'm going to go ahead and stamp "You are strong." Once I get those lined up on my acrylic block, I'll stamp these with black ink, kind of in the upper third of the inside of the card. This leaves plenty of room for a handwritten greeting underneath. I'll add some parentheses, also from the Beautiful Sentiments stamp set on either side. Lots of different ways to use this Beautiful Sentiments stamp set for all kinds of different occasions and cards. Just by switching up the greetings you use, this card could be for lots of different people and occasions, whatever you need a card for. I'll stamp another bee trail, kind of coming in off the edge of the card again, over here on the right edge, and adhere that last bee with some bling glue dots. Use a black glaze pen for the eye, and the Wink of Stella clear glitter brush pen for the wings to give them that nice glittery look. And this just brings the design from the front of the card to the inside of the card and finishes it off nicely so that there's something fun on the inside as well. On the front, I'll take a little glossy accents and go over that heart to make it a nice glossy heart, and that will finish up this encouragement shaker card featuring a hexagon window. Thanks for joining me today for this card featuring honeybee stamps, dies, and confetti. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.